Number 15. My girlfriend had always told me her house was haunted. I'd always hear creaks and stuff upstairs and the occasional footstep, but I always played it off as normal house noises until one night in August of this year. We were downstairs watching TV like usual, about to go to bed, when we both got a really weird feeling almost simultaneously. She gave me a weird look, and I didn't think anything of it, so we went to bed. After a few minutes of her on Twitter and me on Reddit, we put our phones down and roll over to go to sleep. Then we both heard the words, "Good night," in a child's voice. Doesn't seem too strange, right? Well, considering that there were no children in the house, we both looked at each other like, why would you say goodnight like that? Then we realized neither of us had said it, and we left our room fairly quickly. We went downstairs to lay on the couch and watch a little TV and come to our senses and figure out where those words could have come from. Then we both got that someone's watching you feeling. Not like, oh, that dude over there has been staring at me, but something will not take their eyes off me no matter what I do feeling. So we decided it's best to leave the house. We went to walk to our front door, but right as we were about to open it, we heard the child's voice again. This time it came from the balcony above us in the entryway. Clear as day, a child said, "Mommy and Daddy." We looked at each other. I may or may not have screamed, and we ran to my car and decided to drive to the one place that was open in our shitty small Oregon town, Walmart. The problem was, as soon as we got in the car, we knew something had come with us, and it was pissed at us for leaving. The second we got into my Honda, there was nothing but the feeling of hate instilled into both of us for no reason whatsoever. Whatever it was filled that car with hate. It's now about 4 a.m. and I have to be at work in 5 hours, so we decide to go back to her house and try to get some sleep and see what happens. We walk into the front door and nothing but quiet. We walk up the stairs, turn right, and suddenly it sounds like a dog is growling from her upstairs bathroom. It takes me a second though, because I grew up with dogs, and all I could think was that it was just mine being weird. 5 seconds later I realize I'm at her house, and no dog has ever set paw in there. Something was fucking growling at me, and I had no idea what. At this point, I'm fucking pissed at whatever is happening because I'm tired and need to go to sleep for work. So I come up with this brilliant plan of talking shit to whatever was causing all these problems. The only thing that sticks out at this point is me yelling, "If you're so pissed off, do something about it." Right after that, I feel something pull my shirt. I turn around thinking my girlfriend is playing a very unfunny joke on me, but no, she was downstairs. Something pulled my shirt. After that, I decided it was time to leave for the night. At 6 a.m., we get in my car and drive from my mom's house. That car ride was much less hate-filled, and all the bad feelings were gone for a while. I went to work while my girlfriend slept at my mom's place, and when I got off, we went back to her house to check things. Everything seemed fine, except for one picture of us she had hanging on her wall was knocked to the ground like something out of a fucking horror movie. She was too exhausted to care about my safety at that point, and I was so tired I was willing to let whatever was there kill us so I could just get some rest. 2 weeks later, we moved out and haven't had any problems since. I never believed in the paranormal at all until this happened. I still question it. My brain thinks there has to be a logical explanation to all of it, and I'm sure there is, but I know she believes, and a piece of me believes, that there's something else in that house. Number 14. From 3 until 13, I lived in a nice home out near Yosemite National Park. Nothing super spectacular about it. 4 bedrooms, a den, dining room, the norm. Just down a little dirt road, and if you've ever been around these parts you'll know, just a little dirt road, and if you've ever been around these parts you'll know, miles away from civilization. My whole childhood I was visited by this girl in white. She never spoke. I would just wake up at night and see or feel her there. I asked my dad, and his response every time was, "The men in our family can see ghosts." My rational thinking of this was that we all had some sort of mild schizophrenia running through our family. It didn't bother me. She didn't look like other people. There was just something off about her. After my dad died, my mother decided to sell the house and went through a realtor. We never once had contact with the buyers, only knew them by name. The Byers had a son who went to the same school as our old neighbors, dear friends of the family, and the son apparently came to school without sleep repeatedly, complaining there was a girl who watched him all night and that he needed to get out. Number 13. So I get home from my job as a server at midnight. One of my roommates was in the Navy and was deployed at the time, and the other one was at his girlfriend's house. I cook myself dinner, and as I'm cooking, my dog starts growling and barking towards the middle of the room at nothing. This is especially weird because she never ever barks. She was a rescue, and I brought her as a sense of security when I'm home alone, and I could never get her to bark at anyone. I dismiss her barking as odd, but I finish cooking and eat. I start to clean and turn the sink on because it takes forever to get hot, but right when I turned around, the sink turned off on its own. Again, I think it's odd, but I don't think it's worth freaking out over. The hair on the back of my dog is standing up straight, but no one is home, and it's midnight, so I'd figure I'd just tough it out, even though I was beginning to get a little spooked. After cleaning, I go into the bathroom. My bathroom was small, with the sink immediately to your right as you enter, with the toilet next to it, bathtub at the end, and toilet paper dispenser directly across the toilet. So I was sitting on the sink, and the toilet paper dispenser was right behind me. After 2 to 3 minutes, I hear a weird noise behind me, so I turn around, and I shit you not, the whole roll of toilet paper was unraveling fast as fuck, like someone was pulling it. I noped the fuck out of the bathroom. The door was closed and it had no windows, so it couldn't have been a breeze. I put a leash on my dog and run out of that apartment faster than Usain Bolt. By the time this happened, it was already about 2 a.m. None of my friends were awake, so I spent the night sitting outside the door of my apartment. When I get back in the next morning, the whole roll of toilet paper was on the ground, and the roll was probably 3/4 full. I'm talking a good 5 to 10 meters of toilet paper. After that day, I've never had an odd experience quite like that one ever again, but one of my roommates did mention that a few times he'd come home and find every door and cabinet in the place open, when he'd specifically remember closing them and leaving them that way when he left. Number 12. A friend of mine was taking a picture of herself and her daughter kissing, and in the background you can clearly see a figure that was not there. She had ghost experts come in and check around the house and found nothing. After some research, they found one of the previous owners was a mortician or ran a funeral home or something. I have known this girl for years, and it would completely shock me if this was fabricated, as I saw how upset she was and the money she dished out for experts. They no longer live there. Number 11. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my uncle had just visited from the Philippines, showing us a doll that sang the Itsy Bitsy Spider when you pressed a button on her hand. He had brought it with the intention that one of my girl cousins might want it, but in all honesty, we all thought the doll was creepy, especially since it sang the song in a slow, ominous manner. Not knowing what to do with it, we took out the batteries and threw it back in the box that my uncle had put it in. Right after we left the room, all we heard was a muffled, "The itsy bitsy spider came up the water spout." The doll was singing with no fucking batteries. No one was in the room at the time, which means that no one could have replaced the batteries nor pressed the button on her hand. Number 10. I have a ghost that occasionally visits me in my sleep and tells me things that are either about to happen or things that people are hiding from me. It's a female, and from the looks of what she's wearing, she is either from the 30s or 40s. A few things I can recall off the top of my head. When I was in high school, she told me that one of my friends was going to break his leg playing a sport he usually doesn't. The next day, this happened. She told me that a girl I had a crush on was going to give me her number. It happened 2 days later. She told me when both of my dogs were going to die. She now also shows their spirits to me. They haven't left the house, and they act the same as if they were alive. Now the creepiest one for me is that about 3 months ago, she told me that I was missing a female figure in my life. I questioned her, saying that if I should be married or something, and she laughed and said it was family, and that I should ask my mother. I asked my mother about this, and it turns out she had a miscarriage about 2 years before she had me. It was supposed to be a girl. Number 9. One night when I was 10, I was asleep in bed and was woken up by my bedroom door opening, then someone sitting on my bed. I felt the graze on my leg and the bed sink as they sat. Thinking it was just my mom having something to tell me, I opened my eyes only to see a pale, eyeless boy who seemed to be my age sitting at the foot of my bed with his legs crossed, staring at me, or facing my direction since he had no eyes. He then reached his hand towards me, and he was holding what looked like a little black box. I freaked out, but as I reached to grab it, he hesitantly pulled back. I reached out further for it and said, "Give it." As I did so, I blinked, and by the time I reopened my eyes, he was gone. The spot of the bed where he was sitting lifted back into place, but the imprint of someone sitting there was still present. I told my mom in the morning, and she was slightly freaked out, but assured me I was just dreaming. Fast forward 5 years. I had my girlfriend over to do homework. After homework, she took a nap while she waited for her parents to pick her up. When they arrived, I tried waking her to let her know. I nudged her as she opened her eyes so sudden, already looking in the direction of the corner of the room where the walls meet the ceiling, lifting her finger and pointed. As fast as she woke, she fell asleep again. I attempted to wake her again. She came to full consciousness, and I asked her what the hell that was about, and explained what she just did. She said, "Oh, I thought I was dreaming, but up on the wall I saw a little boy with no eyes, just there in a Spider-Man pose staring at me." That's when I freaked out and told her the story for the first time, of when I saw what I guessed was the same kid. Fast forward another 5 years, still with the same girlfriend, and by this time we had a 2-year-old daughter. We were living in my old bedroom at my parents' house. My daughter would wake up at the same time every night and start talking. For a while we thought it was just a normal baby thing, until I noticed it was almost the same conversation every night. I playfully asked her one night who she was talking to every night. She responded, "A little boy. He talks to me. He's nice. He's lost and looking for his mommy." I told my mom what happened the next morning, and before I got to tell her what I thought, she said, "I remember when that happened to you, then your girlfriend. I have no idea what that is." By then, neither my girlfriend or I have seen the little boy after our first encounter, but my daughter continued her nightly conversations until we got our own place later that year. Number 8. My great-grandmother lived with my family at our old house. We had built an addition onto the house so she could have her own kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, etc. After her death, we boxed up her belongings, which included her Bible and various other books and knickknacks, and I ended up moving into that addition since I was the oldest kid still living at home. After a month or so after she died, I was home alone. I had just gotten home from school and decided to watch TV in the family room. I settled down, turned on the TV, and proceeded to chow down on a bag of chips. An hour or so goes by, and I hear what sounded like a door slamming in the addition. My first instinct was to see if my brother was at home without my knowledge, since he had a bad habit of slamming doors. I started down the hall towards his room. I never had the chance to open his door. Further down the hall, in the addition, I saw a person head directly towards my bedroom. It was at this point that I had to fight the incredible urge to shit my pants. I knew there was an axe murderer in the house, and it was going to be up to me to stop him. I entered my brother's room and grabbed the first weapon I could find, a plastic lightsaber. I slowly crept towards the addition. The closer I got, the colder the air felt around me. It was the strangest feeling ever. I slowly entered my room and saw nothing. I had seen enough movies to know that the axe murderer was in one of two places, either under my bed or in my closet. I checked under the bed first. Nothing. I then flung open the closet, fully expecting an epic axe versus lightsaber battle, but was thankfully disappointed. I began to creep around the addition, looking for signs of a break-in. I found nothing along those lines, but what I did find creeps me the hell out to this day. On my great-grandmother's couch, the couch she sat on every day that I can remember, I found her open Bible, the same Bible that had been boxed up a few weeks earlier. Number 7. To sum it up, there's a legend about a woman who hung herself from a poinciana tree after being raped by a Japanese fisherman after discovering that she was pregnant. Thus, she is called the Poinciana woman. Anyway, she is said to be situated around the army base we have here. So one night, my eldest sister, brother, and their partners decided to go to the army tunnels, break in, and have a sesh. They didn't stay for very long, because once they were in, they said they had heard footsteps and ran out thinking it was a security guard. They arrived home at around 11 p.m. and went to sleep. My mother, little brother, and I were still awake, however. Mom was drunk, playing music loud from the TV. I was on the family computer in the lounge room, and my brother was getting ready to go to bed. Suddenly, he had ran out into the lounge room and was screaming, "Can you hear that?" Of course we couldn't hear what he was referring to, so we muted the TV, and we went up against the window with our ears pressed, trying to listen to whatever he was talking about. There was a light moan coming from outside the window. It sounded feminine. It was just outside of the window we were at. It circled around the house. We could hear it coming from the window opposite to the one we were at, and then the door on the side. It began getting louder and louder and louder. The wind literally picked up, and it was hurtling around with the sound. It got so loud and dramatic that my brother and I were on the ground with our ears covered, crying and screaming. We have spoken about this after the incident. We both recall being able to hear the sound at the exact same volume, even with our ears covered, almost as if it was in our heads. This went on for about 5 or 10 minutes, when suddenly it just stopped. It was silent, and there was no wind outside. Mom was there with us and recalls nothing happening. She didn't hear a thing. It was only after we moved out of that house, years later, we realized that there was a poinciana tree outside of that window. Number 6. My first home I was born and raised in always felt like something to call home during the day, but at night, it seemed like there was always something around the corner or behind you. I felt it, my cousins felt it, and my parents always ignored it. Weird stuff would always happen, like doors opening and slamming themselves, waking me up, but that wasn't the least of my concerns. One time at night, I was reading a book while laying down on my floor with half of my body in my closet. I don't know why, and the power went off. Immediately chills ran down my spine. Almost a second later, I hear a deep-toned growling right behind me and ran crying to my mom, knocking over a lot of stuff. It was pitch black. She yelled at me when the lights turned on and didn't believe me. I begged her to let me sleep with her that night. I just didn't feel safe at all in that fucking room. I had no other choice but to just try to think it was all my imagination and sleep in there anyways. I woke up to my head hitting my bed frame and my right leg being dragged into my closet. God fucking damn, I'm getting chills just remembering this. I knew someone was in there and wanted me to look at it, but I didn't. I screamed my lungs out and ran straight to my mom and cried all night telling her what happened. She got mad at me for waking her up and being a girl. My family is rather tough, I guess you can say. That night, I slept at the foot of her bed, shaking, trying to only look towards my mother, because I just had this haunting feeling of someone or something standing right behind me, just staring. A bunch of other stuff happened in that house, but that was by far the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me. Number 5. I've suffered from insomnia as far back as I can remember. I was in the 2nd grade, and it was early in the morning. I think around 5 or so. I had a little TV on my nightstand and was definitely watching Lord of the Rings on VHS. I had the volume up super loud because my ceiling fan always made a ruckus throughout the night. I was super into the movie when all of a sudden, all the sound around me starts to slowly fade away. I remember I became confused and reached to turn my TV up thinking it had broke, but then I realized the sound of the fan had faded with it. The only way I can describe it is comparing it to something turning the volume down on a car radio. I was suddenly overwhelmed by an intense feeling of euphoria. I had never experienced anything like it. I absolutely cannot describe how utterly at peace I felt. I was able to comprehend what was happening, and then it clicked in my head that I was dying. Keep in mind that I'm in the 2nd grade, so this is a pretty intense conclusion, but I just knew. I rolled over onto my back, ready to, and excited to accept my fate. That's when I saw it. There was a large white figure in my doorway, just hovering and pulsating a white aura. I quickly panicked and began calling out for my brother. His room was across the hall. The figure glided to the end of my bed and just sat there, watching. I'm not really sure how much time passed, but the figure suddenly vanished. Sound came back, and the euphoria disappeared. I jumped out of bed and ran into my brother's room, where I practically flew into his bed. He woke up and saw how panicked I was, and he began to panic as well. I was hysterical and just kept telling him it was a ghost. We did what any other kids would do and hide under his covers. After a while, we got anxious, and I bravely made a peephole in the blanket to check the time on the clock, hoping it would be daylight soon. 5:30. The clock read 5:30 in the morning. Then the phone rang, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang. Me and my brother started to panic even more. Then silence. Once again, it began to ring, and ring, and ring. We jumped out of bed and took turns running from light switch to light switch until we had a light path to the living room. Our house was over 5,000 square feet. This was not an easy task. We got to the living room and watched cartoons until my mom woke up. She was livid, yelling at us for being up so early. I told her I saw a ghost, which only made her more upset. My brother, who was always tormenting my irrational fears, got mad at her and started telling her this wasn't a joke and it wasn't my imagination. I started telling her to check the phone because I saw the ghost around 5:30 and it must have been the ghost calling. Kid logic. She went to check the phone and went to the other room for a while. Suddenly, she wasn't upset anymore. When we asked if it was said ghost, she said it was a telemarketer. She was so nice about it, she let me sleep in her room the next few days. I thought maybe since it was my brother's birthday that day, she just didn't want to argue, but she never let me sleep in her room. 2 days later, after getting home from school, my mom called me to the family room and told me to sit on her lap and that she needed to tell me something. I obliged. My great-grandma passed away in the hospital at 5:30 a.m., and the phone calls are my grandma calling to notify us. Me and my great-grandma were extremely close. To this day, I get chills thinking about it. I know that there are a few ways to explain the occurrence, but I know for a fact that it was 100% a paranormal experience. My mom and brother still back me up on it to this day. Number 4. My mom was diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer in 2009. It was a struggle, and the doctors didn't expect her to pull through, but she did like a champ. My mom is a fighter, and as she puts it, refused to let cancer kick her ass. Fast forward to 2012, and she decided to undergo reconstructive surgery. The surgery goes well, and she is put into recovery. She spends a day drifting in and out of consciousness, which was expected after a surgery like that. The whole time she is hooked up to a morphine drip to help her pain. After being reassured by the doctors that everything was fine, we decided to go to our homes and shower and sleep. My sister elects to stay just in case anything goes down. Fast forward to the next morning, and my sister is calling me in tears saying that I have to get to the hospital right now. I rush up to the hospital and am pulled aside by doctors telling me that my mom had suffered some complications from the surgery and is in a coma. A half an hour goes by and my stepdad arrives, and the doctors pull him and I into her room. They say her lungs are filling with fluids at a fast rate. They say she is unlikely to recover and we need to make a decision to keep her on life support or pull the plug. We refuse to let her go like that. 3 days go by and my mom starts showing some cognitive activity. By the end of the week, she fully wakes up. The relevant part happens after she wakes up. She looks at my stepdad and I and asks when we came into the room. We told her we've been here all week. She seems really dumbfounded by this and replies that she's only been in the room for a day or two. She then asks where her grandmother had gone. This creeped us out. My great-grandmother passed away in early 2007. When my stepdad tried to explain this to her, she replied that she spent the last couple of days with her talking about the family. She said grandma got really weird and told her that she can't give up because she has children to take care of. According to my mom, around the time that she said this, my mom became aware of us being in the room and her grandma was gone. It was really weird to talk to her about it. To this day, she has no recollection of being in the coma. She knows that she was now, but all she can remember is spending a few days in the hospital with her grandmother talking about the family. Number 3. We moved into a house and everything was really quiet the first 6 months or so. The neighbors told us the people that lived there before had moved after their teenage son died in a motorcycle accident. Then after the first 6 months, my dad died, not in the house, but after that, stuff started to happen. I would have friends sleep over, and one night my friend woke me up because she said there was a young guy standing in the bathroom, so I went and checked and nothing was there. Over the next few years, just about any friends that stayed overnight had said they saw the tall, blonde young guy walking around the house. We did have a few other things happen, like a wine glass that was on the counter suddenly shatter. No one was touching it, it just shattered on the counter. Another time during the winter, we had the heater on and my room was always the warmest in the house, and it was ice cold as you walked across my bedroom to the bathroom that was connected. The creepiest thing was when my friend was sleeping on the couch, and in the middle of the night, he said he woke up to a young guy pushing him off onto the floor. He said the guy didn't say anything, but my friend knew at the time he had to leave, and he did. He wouldn't stay at my place after that. Number 2. So I was about 9 or 10. I went to my friend Allison's house. She and her parents were at her soccer game. Found that out later. Her house was 3 lots down the street and on the other side. The house had a 6-foot fence around the property, opening up to the driveway. Whenever she wasn't home, I would just wait for her in the backyard. Her swing set was totally badass. So here I am swinging, waiting for Allison, having a great time. I'm watching through the kitchen window, through the living room, and out the front door, hoping to see her and her parents walk up to the front door. Then I saw a dark, slowly moving figure thing move across the front room. The next few seconds seemed to last years. I am no longer swinging, still sitting on my favorite swing. I am no longer happy. Deathly still I watch this figure, holding my breath as it glides. No, no, no. The voice in my head shrieks as the pitch black shadow stops. Panic is starting to set in my young mind. Hold perfectly still, I tell myself, intently watching as the figure starts to turn towards me. I see no face or any detail, but I feel it as it faces me. Definitely male, definitely full of hate. Every hair feels like it's standing on my head. Scared shitless and not able to move, I tell myself this can't be real. It's almost some waking dream. The thing starts moving towards me. I let out a loud gasp-like scream. I can almost feel its intention. I am frozen by the hate I can feel. I look past the door to the kitchen to the driveway. If that guy comes out of the door at me, I'll never make it past, I think. I look the other way towards the fence. That side doesn't open, but I can climb it. We always did to get to the field. I've never climbed it great, but I can. Looking back at the window, I see the shadow man slide right through the window. I scream as I run towards the field. Never looking back, I climb the fence the fastest I've ever did. Falling off the top of the fence, I land on my back, jump up, and run as fast as I have in my life back to my house. Upon entering my house, I run straight to my room and enter my closet. This is where I sat for the next 4 hours until my parents finally convinced me to come out. To this day, I still get chills when I recall this stuff. Number 1. So this was several years ago, when I was a total deadbeat and I lived with my then girlfriend's parents. They had a tri-level house, with the basement that contained our living space and my girlfriend and I's bedroom. Upstairs was the living space for everyone else, the dining room and kitchen. The third level had the master bedroom and 2 additional bedrooms for my girlfriend's sisters. I was home alone one night, with her parents off with friends, my girlfriend at a friend's, and her sisters were at an all-night church thing. I elected to stay home and play WoW all night. Where my computer and desk sat, right above my head, was an AC vent. Often I could hear her sister playing in a room from that vent. I was leveling my paladin or something when I heard laughing and giggling come from the vent. No one was supposed to be at home, so my heart picked up. I glanced at the clock on my computer, and it read 1:36 a.m. I remember this all very distinctly. I went to go investigate and headed upstairs. The way the landing sits is at the top of those stairs. You can turn left and either go upstairs or go into the kitchen. I climbed the second set of stairs and opened the first door on the left, which was her young sister's room, which is directly above the basement. Inside, I used the light of my phone to illuminate as best I could. I saw a small figure, what I assumed was a small girl wrapped in a white sheet in the center of the room, cue pants shitting. This This young girl stops playing with the dolls and slowly looks at me. It lets out the most ear-shattering scream you can imagine. My skin crawls just thinking about it, and my chest tightens just remembering it. I wish I could tell you what transpired, but I remember waking up at the bottom of the landing, right next to the door of the kitchen. I stumbled into the kitchen to get a drink of water and contemplate what the fuck just happened. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. The clock read 4:46 a.m. We never found the sheet the next day, but the dolls the figure was playing with were sitting in the middle of the room, away from the toy chest they were just in that afternoon. Got an idea for a top 15 list? Be sure to leave it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.